Welcome back, guys. This week, the third and final chapter on anger, the sixth and final chapter on emotions. After we get through this video, you will have all the tools you will ever need to manage any emotion at any time, in any place. Doesn't mean you're going to do it though, right? That's the challenge I hand back to you, but you're going to have all the tools. In this video, we're going to talk about how anger is really just another form of compassion. It's the same thing. All that requires of you to turn anger into compassion is a decision. Are we smart enough to make a decision? I think we are. Are we smart enough to do a recap? I think we are. Anger, an emotional response from the environment, letting us know there's a need or an injustice out there. This is reality. You can see I just wrote it in before the video. I was going to write it anyway. A mode of operation telling us to get a need met, to get an injustice rectified. I mean, isn't it a perfect system? Right? The thing that lets us know we have a need or an injustice out there is the exact same thing that revs up our body, dopamine and adrenaline, that gets us in the mode to get that need met or get that injustice rectified. It is completely perfect. Could not have developed a more perfect system. It is uncomfortable though. But, right, like if it was easy, anybody would do it. Says every dad ever. And it's not easy. It can be difficult. And there's three things that we can do with anger. The first thing is to not do anything with it because it's uncomfortable. It becomes sadness, right? This is our distraction, our defense mechanisms. Oh, I don't really need that thing. Oh, it's no big deal. Right? This is culture telling us anger is a bad thing. Oh, no, I'm not an angry guy. No, I don't get angry. I'm an environmentalist, right? I think women should be, I'm an ally. That's this. Let's be honest about that, what that really is on a psychological level. It becomes sadness. After 3 to 6 months, it becomes depression. Yeah, after 3 to 6 months, it becomes depression. If we want to be pretentious about it, we call it clinical depression. The only way out of it is awareness through seeing our emotions reflected in others' attachments, right? I got a question this week of this guy just has a difficult enough time getting out of bed. I mean, he does get out of bed because he just has so much sadness down here. Just start listening. If nothing else, listen. You can't bring yourself to talk, listen. I mean, we have these devices in our hands that supposedly disconnect us. I mean, you have 200 contacts right now. I'm basically a loner and I have 300 contacts. Just go through and start calling people. And you don't have to talk. Don't tell them about your depression. Nobody wants to hear about it. Not right away. Just listen. That's plenty. That is all the reflection you will ever need. We're back up here in anger. The ellipse of anger, right? And then we can still do something destructive with it. We can be Uncle Vinny about it. We have our box of anger and we make other people deal with it. Here, you manage it. The implication being, I can't manage this anger on my own. All the manifestations of hostility, what were they? Oh yeah, like temper tantrum, preemptive violence, jealousy, revenge, manipulation, all trying to get something instead of make something, which we're going to talk about today. The only way out of hostility is responsibility. Taking responsibility for all this, asking ourselves, what is it about me that likes being jealous, for instance? Or what secondary emotional payoff do I get from my temper tantrums? And I know you can do it. I mean, look, if you're smart enough to click on this video, if you're smart enough to understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, Chris Tucker, then you can always be responsible for this. You are never helpless with your anger. You can always be responsible. It's not about being smart enough. It's just having enough intellectual wherewithal to be responsible. And I know you can be once we're responsible. You're doing it right. When we're back here in anger, it feels uncomfortable. And we can then do something beautiful with it, dare I say. I think I'm going to say constructive here. I'm not. I'm going to use another word. The operative word is assertive. Yep. We take our anger and instead, this is slave morality, being self-destructive, turning it inward. We do the master morality thing. We take our anger and put it out in the world and go, let's figure this out. Let's figure out a solution to this need, to this injustice that not only makes my life better, but makes everybody's life better. that makes the world better, that contributes something to the world. Yes, we are getting that grandiose about this. It is that important. And once we do that, this becomes compassion. Or the anger begins to feel like compassion. This isn't false compassion. When we are down here coming up with our gratitude list that ultimately cut us off from reality, I could make this arrow a little better, that cut us off from reality, we actually feel grateful because we are working with our psychology, because we're working with our anger, which is our conduit to reality, to the needs and injustices that are out there. This is creative. We are sitting with our anger. We're getting more and more comfortable just sitting with our anger, just feeling it. And that makes it more likely for us to come with a, hey, maybe I'll do this sort of thing with it. Great story from a patient of mine. His name is Howard, workaholic, mattress salesman, never really there for his son. I think his son was about 9. Never really there for his son. He wouldn't show up to recitals, and I think the straw that broke the camel's back is Howard wasn't there for one of his son's karate tournaments. It was Christmas time. Howard goes, you know what? I'm going to make up with my son. I'm going to get him a Turbo Man action figure. It was the popular toy. Everybody was raging about it. I was going to say. It was the popular toy in this Christmas season. I think it was like 1996 or 1997. And what's interesting about this story is he never really talks to his son about what his son wants. I mean, his son says that he wants a Turbo Man action figure, but he doesn't actually sit down with his son. So he goes on this whole adventure that doesn't really make a lot of sense, that it doesn't really go anywhere, trying to get the Turbo Man action figure. He's trying to get something. He's down here, and a good indication you're in hostility mode as opposed to assertiveness mode is you're trying to get something. I mean, it really doesn't make much sense. He wins this radio call-in contest. He wins a Turbo Man action figure, but he shows up to the radio station and they don't have it. I mean, the only thing good that comes out of his adventure is he makes friends with Sinbad. But eventually, Howard gets to the point he realizes, you know what? That there's a Christmas parade going through town. Some guy's going to dress up as Turbo Man. I'm going to be the guy who dresses up as Turbo Man. And he dresses up as Turbo Man, gets to the end of the parade, presents his son with a limited edition Turbo Man action figure. His son gets the Turbo Man, he thinks he's doing this. His son gets the Turbo Man and he says, I didn't really want the Turbo Man action figure. Ultimately what I wanted is I just wanted my dad to be there for me. The Turbo Man action figure represented that. I mean, I'm tearing up thinking about it. It's total this. Getting in contact with what the need really was. It wasn't a Turbo Man action figure. And a lot of times, getting our need met is figuring out what our need is. And we're going to get into this more on videos I'm going to do later on boundary. And figuring out what is a mature need. An immature need that a lot of guys have is, I want to get this girl to like me. This one specific girl to like me. Right, you're trying to get something. That's not a mature need because you're trying to use your will to change her will. But her will is her own. And this is a boundary issue. Again, I'm teasing maybe too far ahead. But this is the process. Right? This is how we get our needs met, our injustices rectified, and how there's certain rules of confidence. Right? Like you have intention, you had to be consistent, you had to fail. Well, the one rule of getting your needs met to really turn it into compassion is you have to succeed. This has to be a successful endeavor, even if, as I mentioned before, you figure out what the need really is. You don't really need to get your kid a Turbo Man action figure. You need a relationship with your son. Maybe you need that, and the action figure represents that. And this is what you need to feel the compassion. You have to actually get something met. There are no points for trying when turning anger into compassion. And just take little wins if you have to. Call in a friend, like the aforementioned question that I referenced. Just call in your friend. There, that's a need met. A little bit more compassion. Getting the sadness, becoming ever more aware of the sadness into anger, into the conscious form of anger. And as we come back from both sadness and hostility to get to anger, we need to come back from compassion, right? because we can't just always live out here. We have to be, this is in touch with reality. This is our conduit to reality. This is Jesus, essentially. We got to come back here. And when we go from compassion back to anger, I'm going to make anger something else because there's some space here. What does anger become? It becomes desire. Anger plus compassion is desire. Desire is anger we know how to handle. We know how to get the needs and injustices met. Desire is a conscious form of anger. Yeah, I also put the dotted line in before the video. It's a conscious form of anger. It is a way to connect with reality. And of course, anger, after we good at getting our needs met, after we get up in here a few times, maybe do this it may take a couple years, I don't know. Of course it's going to feel like desire. Of course it's going to be ultimately a good thing. A need and injustice come in from the environment and we go, good. Just more opportunity, ever more opportunity to engage with the environment, to step up our energy level. To feel the dopamine, to feel the adrenaline. I love it. Buddha says desire is suffering. That's in the East. Here in the West, here in America, desire is awesome. Is it uncomfortable? Maybe. Oh well, being in touch with this, the God that is reality, can sometimes be uncomfortable. We see a 5-story building and we go, you know what? I want to make a 10-story building. I want to just keep doing more, ever more engagement with reality. It is a beautiful thing because it's only by doing this can we really achieve this thing, not just convince ourselves that we have this thing by creating a list, come up with things we're grateful for. It is, if this isn't beautiful, I don't know what is. Again, maybe a little bit beautiful mindy too. Beautiful nonetheless. This is it, guys. You have all the tools you'll ever need to handle any emotion you will ever have. The next couple videos, we're going to talk about the unconscious pleasure-pain mechanism, the Oedipus complex, how those two combine to form anger and anxiety. We're going to talk about boundaries, what I mentioned a little bit, why I teased a little bit in this video, our mind, what our mind is, what decisions are. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. I love doing this. I love talking with you guys. And if nothing else, if you get nothing else from this video, go watch Jingle All the Way. It's an awesome movie.